Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. I am your host, your guide, the asker of questions, if you will, with our wonderful guests. How are you doing? How's everyone going? Hope you're doing okay. It's 2023 has been an interesting sort of start. We're now March, April-ish, and it's a good time. Daylight savings not too far away from finishing either. The days will get shorter and the nights will get colder. But such is life. Such is life, really, isn't it? I'm going to throw to my camera now. Today's guest, bit of a unique situation, really. I'll explain it to everyone. So we had a guest booked for tonight, and unfortunately they cancelled at the last minute. They had something they needed to take care of, couldn't get out of it. We at the Northland Artists Conversation like to be as accommodating as possible and said, yep, that's cool, totally fine, not a problem. So I said to producer Andrew, I said, producer Andrew, it's time. And he was like, what? And I said, you're going to be on the podcast tonight. And he was going to be producing tonight's podcast as well. So we kind of did a little bit of trickery tonight. We kind of set the cameras rolling, and then Andrew came and sat down, and we did a podcast as normal. And for me, it was very, very cool. We got to talk more in depth about Andrew's life growing up, his discovery of hip-hop. We touched a little bit on the bullying that he went through as well, which is never fun, never nice. Horrible experience to go through. And then we really sort of talked about how he discovered the guys from OBC and how they all came together, and they went through that period of time where they were struggling to, they knew they wanted to make music and they wanted it to be good, but they were still struggling and trying to figure out bits and pieces. As a fun aside for you all, the music that you're about to hear, the long version, and then the shorter version that you'll have heard at the start, is actually written by Steve, who is part of the OBC crew. And the song is called Hoofprints 2. Before you ask, there was never a Hoofprints 1. They just give their beats random ass names, and I liked Hoofprints 2 when I got to pick some. Super cool. So Steve from OBC, thank you very much. So I'll tell you what, let's talk about OBC. Let's find out what they're up to. Let's sit down and have a conversation with Andrew McKenzie. So this will be a really interesting podcast for everyone, because obviously you're normally behind the camera, and there were times, sort of earlier on where you would co-host with me, right? Yeah. And obviously we're developing a couple of different formats to be able to do stuff. Yeah. But for the moment, it's really just me. So I get to ask you all of the stuff.
All of the things and stuff.
All of the things and stuff that I would normally ask all of our guests. Now, as a skilled hip-hop artist, and
skilled,
well,
all right.
You can put some words together and string them in a sentence, and then say that sentence relatively quickly.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
There you go. Obviously we know a bit about each other, but I'm always curious to know, where did you start?
So you want to know where I started?
I want to know. I want you to go way back, and I want to know what got you into creativity. Was it lots of music at mum and dad's house? Was it I heard X album by X artist and thought, this shit's changed my life? Or what was it for you?
Oh, I could ramble about this, so
let's ramble.
Settle in. I'll keep an eye on the time, though. It really, the inception for the idea of me doing hip hop or doing anything related to rhyming was poetry. Like, I started sending emails and MSN Messenger conversations back and forth with my cousins.
Yep.
And it was poetry about random things, pot plants, cats, anything. And we were like 12, 13, just going back and forth. And then, I kind of enjoyed it, just writing stuff and throwing it at each other.
Okay, so then let me ask a bigger question. How did you get into poetry?
That was it. So in school, I did writing heaps.
Okay, right.
I'm really good at English.
Mhm.
Like, I never studied for anything and passed everything to do with English.
Right.
And I guess it's just natural in me. My mum's really, really, really good at the same things.
Okay.
Like, she's really good at writing. Like, I write mean emails to my landlord and stuff, and some really good ones some days.
So you're writing these sort of messages in MSN Messenger, and then how does that sort of grow and develop into writing beats? Because essentially you could have been instead of going down the hip hop path, you could have gone down a whole different bunch of paths.
Really, yeah.
Obviously, maybe not classical so much. It's all acoustic, really, isn't it? Or instrumental.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is, what took you towards the path of hip hop?
I guess where I grew up. I grew up in
Raumanga. Oh, Raumanga, right. Yeah. Okay.
You know, that neighbourhood that I grew up in, they were only ever really going to listen to hip hop or classic kind of rock, and you know. I guess that's kind of how I ended up in that. I went to Morningside Primary School.
Oh, yeah.
All my mates were listening to the Marshall Mathers LP.
Yeah.
Because, just to date myself, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, when did you hear that?
I would have been 8 or 9.
Okay.
So it was before then. I kind of was introduced to hip-hop earlier on.
Right, okay. So that was my question, is what got you earlier?
I see. Yeah.
Okay, so we've now got a sort of in that teen years where you've started writing, but you're actually being influenced before that.
Before that, yes.
You know, you're listening to Eminem, spit rhymes and drop bars.
And Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style.
Yep, that's classic album.
My mate used to bring that over and we used to play it on my deck.
Yep.
Mum would be like, turn it off.
Right.
Anything to do with hip-hop. At that time, you know, it was real new, fresh, misunderstood.
Very misunderstood. So what year was that?
Yeah, once again, it would have been, I was about 8 or 9. So about 99, 2000.
Oh, yep. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that, man, so...
See, but my knowledge of hip-hop is very limited still.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Like I'm still kind of learning I should know.
So around that sort of 98, 99, 2000 mark, you would have had Bone Thugs and Harmony. They would have had their big album with the song Crossroads on there.
Yeah.
Tupac's All Eyes on Me was out.
Yeah.
You had Wu-Tang Into the 36 Chambers.
Yeah.
And then I think Wu-Tang Forever was out, but I'm not too sure if it was around that time.
See, that's what I mean about my knowledge. I never really listened to them at that age. Because as I say, I didn't grow up in a strict house, but there was just like, no, you're not listening to that sort of thing. You know?
Yeah.
So I didn't really, like, it's literally taken me to my adult years to kind of get to those kind of albums. So, like, for instance, now I'm driving around and stuff. I got a lot of time to listen to stuff.
Yeah.
So, I didn't really listen to them back then. So you could say I'm not very hip-hop savvy in terms of what's what.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, obviously, if you're discovering it around the sort of Marshall Mathers album, you're really just going to move forward.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
exactly it.
As you move forward, you're then going to hit a point where you go, maybe I need to listen to what inspired the artists I listened to, like what inspired Eminem.
Yeah, that's kind of where it came.
Yeah.
Because, like, you look at Kendrick nowadays, just to zoom way forward.
Yep.
You know, when he drops names that I've never heard, I go back and I listen now.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, like, Kendrick's up there as kind of the gold standard of this era.
Yes.
And so, like, yeah, it pays to pay attention now, for me especially, just so when I get into these conversations, I can actually participate.
Yeah.
Because my influences were a lot weirder than that.
Okay, so who were your influences then?
They probably weren't weird. I mean, that looking back now, probably the biggest ones were Fort Minor, which is Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park.
That's right. Yep, that's that 20% positivity.
So that song really inspired me.
Yeah, it's a great track too.
Yeah, it must have spoken to me as a young man, eh?
Yeah. Well, that song was so good because it spoke to a wide range of people, and once you found that song and you were singing the chorus and it was all the percentages,
and,
you're like,
where'd you go?
Yeah.
Where'd You Go was on there as well.
Yeah, man.
If you remember that one.
With
Holly someone. I can't remember her last name now. But she sings that, Where'd you go? I miss you so.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah,
I don't know her name, but I do know the song. Yeah,
so
yeah.
like to put it in contrast on that whole album, it has a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So like Remember the Name, which is what you were talking about before, is
Yes.
like a straight up hip hop song.
Yep.
Like, I'm great, I'm gonna do this in this way. Whereas Where'd You Go tells a story.
Yeah.
You know, it really introduced me to a lot of things in terms of how I write and what I wanted to make. Was inspired by a lot of that. Like, that album. And it's funny because I hadn't really thought about that album recently until you asked me that question. I was like,
really?
shit, that's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Who else?
But Scribe, obviously.
I heard Scribe's Dreaming today.
Oh, yeah.
That's
It's another national anthem.
That's a banger of a song. I never really liked the first two singles. Stand Up.
Oh, Stand Up's my favourite.
And
Not Many.
Not Many, right?
Yeah, Not Many, the remix is just...
Yeah. But Dreaming, I always really resonated with because obviously it's a story of him growing up and wanting to achieve.
Really chasing his dream.
Yeah, and going hard for it, which I guess you could put that and that Fort Minor song kind of
That's what I was going to say.
together.
Yeah, they're quite relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that he was a big one. But for him, I didn't really appreciate, like, I guess that sounds rude, but I didn't really listen for that kind of song. Like, Dreaming's good, and I still listen to it quite often, but the wordplay he brought kind of leveled up, I guess, New Zealand's rap game at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of set a standard. I find everything after that album started to gain notoriety worldwide.
Well, that's Decepticons, Savage, Morocco.
Yeah, Savage is a good example.
Those guys.
Yeah.
But I think just prior to that, you would have had DLT, Shayfu had broken out of Supergroove at that point as well. Yep. So, okay.
Yeah. And so I listened to a lot of Kiwi stuff after that. Scribe kind of, I listened to that and Rhymebook kind of flopped.
Well, yeah, so interesting.
But I thrashed that album too.
Was it the Crusader, the first album?
Yep,
the
Crusader.
And
worst name ever, but yeah.
And then, he's from Canterbury. It's the greatest name ever. Shut up! I was born in Canterbury. My brother's in Canterbury. Glenn, if you're watching, represent,
up the
bro.
Blues.
No.
Anyway,
we digress. It's not going to turn into a sporting podcast. I guess, because if I remember the events rightly, he dropped the first single, which had Not Many, and that it was kind of two back to back, right?
Yeah.
You had the How Many Dudes You Know Roll Like This.
Yeah.
And then you had the other part. It was like two songs joined together, and then he split them off, and that was the second single. So that first album's just banger after banger after banger.
Yeah. If you go back further, his work with P Money in the early days, like Scribe 2001.
Yep.
Like Scribe 2001 is one of my favourites of his. And I guess, the track that blew him up.
Yeah.
And then he followed that up on the Crusader with a track called Scribe Unlimited.
Oh, okay.
So, 2001, it was like he's setting himself there, but he's like, no, I'm going forever. So, and it samples the chorus. It's a great track. I think it's highly underrated. But yeah, now we're talking about Scribe heaps. Holy.
We are. Scribe, if you're listening, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And follow us on our socials as well.
Scribe. Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Eminem. We've got Scribe. Who else are we looking at?
David Dallas.
Another Kiwi guy.
For sure. All my inspirations after Scribe are pretty much Kiwi.
So David Dallas was a solo rapper, or was he part of a group
So
originally?
he was a part of Frontline with, I think it's 41. His producer was, so it was a producer-rapper combo. It's quite common of that era. Or up to that era.
Yep.
It doesn't really happen so much nowadays, does it? But
no.
Like I guess Ryan Lewis and Macklemore, but it was a similar thing.
Yep.
And Frontline was cool. I didn't really listen to Frontline. I listened to David Dallas when he made Big Time, and another track that really made me want to make good music is Big Time.
Okay.
So all these ones that talk about making it in the hip hop game, I get stupidly inspired.
So I think, as someone who, I've never really delved too much into hip hop. It's never really been my thing.
Yeah.
Partly because, I mean, you could say I'm ignorant, but for me, part of it is I never saw the appeal of sitting down with records. For me, it was always instruments, having someone play something, right? So for me, probably my two biggest songs are Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a classic.
For sure.
And Lose Yourself.
Yeah, Lose Yourself was
now that
amazing.
That along with Dreamin', along with Fort Minor song,
they're
all about the struggle in making it and achieving.
Yeah, coming from nothing and making something of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so David Dallas definitely did that with a few of his tracks. He did a song called Postcard, and I think it's about writing home to his parents when he's on the road.
Okay.
It's another good one that's along those lines. I like Postcard, and it samples Good Will Hunting.
Oh, the movie,
so,
yes.
So, there's, I think it's at the beginning, it's that conversation they have leaning on the car at the construction site. And he's like, my best part of my day is I might go to your house and you won't be there. Yeah, it's a good song.
That,
and it kind of follows that sort of like he's the genius taking off kind of thing. So yeah, it was pretty, So there's just, because for me, I think I've said this before, not on here, but I'm not an album person personally. Like, I'll chuck on an album if I'm going to a place for like a long drive.
Yeah,
but I build playlists.
Right.
That's what I'm like.
A lot of it, I think so I'm 47, turning 48 this year. You're obviously a little bit younger than me. But I think you're of that generation that really tapped into the Napster, downloading the particular songs.
That's exactly it.
And then, ripping putting them on the CDs. But it's all just like banger after banger after banger, Whereas for me, I grew up in the, Def Leppard's Hysteria, right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if I wanted to, I could either save up for the whole album or I could buy the single, right, which was a small little vinyl. I could get 3 singles or the whole album. So it obviously always made sense to get the whole album because the whole album gets me the 3 singles, but then it gets me the rest of the album as well. Yeah. So for me, I sort of appreciate, I have that start to finish thing, and I discovered like concept albums and stuff like that, which were amazing and blew my mind because it's like
concept albums.
Each song is a story, and they're all part of an overarching story.
And even nowadays, they'll mesh a whole album together, so it plays like one track almost. Yeah. Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar. There's a great underlying story throughout the whole album. It's just one of the rare ones that I've kind of listened to full. Rose Tint, David Dallas was another one, and yes, The Crusader. Okay. But I'm not really tuned like that. I do get into artists and listen to whole discogs, but it's very rare. Okay.
So it's got to be the artist has to really sort of capture you with something unique and original.
Well, something for me, it's relatable.
Right. Okay.
I think that the way you relate, it comes through in my own music, and our crew's music is we want to relate to people. So that's kind of what I'm tuned to. Okay. As a general rule.
So as the kid that grew up in Morningside and did all your primary school years there, listening to hip hop, that makes sense, right? Because it's part of the culture in the area, right? Yeah. Where did you go to after Morningside?
I went out to Total Area School, which is honestly not worth talking about.
Okay, we'll bypass that. You went there for that long, were you?
I was there for 2 years or 1.5 years. Okay. Bullying, so I had to leave.
You were bullying, or you were being bullied?
I was getting bullied. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I was the townie. So.
Right. Okay. The townie in the area school of the country kids.
Yeah. So right, okay. I left there, and then a few of my mates from Morningside I kind of hung out with towards the end of the year before high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I started to reconnect with them, and they were all going to Boys High, so I ended up going there. Okay. And that's where it all kind of took off after there. Like, I was in my element for a bit. I still had the same kind of bullying shit going on. Yeah. And I did drop out because of that, but the people I met shaped the crew I would create. So, yeah, it's pretty it's weird to think about it because I had such a shit time at that school, but there was some really, really important connections made.
Yeah, and I guess high school was really your formative years. You're kind of in that mode where you're discovering yourself, figuring out who you are. Because now you're part of a very well respected crew. OBC, but you weren't always part of OBC, were you?
No.
So go back to high school. Have you sort of progressed from writing poetry, the 12, 13, 14-year-old through to starting to actually write hip-hop lyrics now? Have you made that transition at this point?
So no, year 9 kind of went by as a blur. I reconnected with a few people I'd known before, and that was all good. I was in completely different classes to all my mates, so that wasn't all good.
No.
Year 10 was where it really took off. Me and my mate Ants, we decided we wanted to rap because we were going to youth group at this church, and they'd allow you to do anything. So like at the youth group, they'd have like this plan thing out, and they had slots that like you could fill, which was cool.
Okay. Yeah.
We sucked at the time. Like obviously, you're starting out, you're writing stupid.
What were you writing about?
So some of it was a bit religious, but I didn't really vibe with that. I just wrote hooks mainly for that, and Ants would kind of lead the way.
Okay, for the people that don't know, because I'll be honest, I'm not very educated. What is a hook?
So a hook is like it's like in hip hop terms, it's quite fluid.
Is a hook
so
like
it feels
a
like
verse
it can be like a pre-chorus, it could be the whole thing.
Right. Okay.
That's my understanding. I haven't googled the definition, but the singer sings the hooks. That's kind of how it goes in hip hop and rap music. Is the hook is reserved for someone to do something repetitive almost.
Yeah.
So
So if we were to look at Scribe's Dreaming, for example, because we were talking about that.
Yeah, I was down and out is a hook.
That's the hook. Now that's the chorus, right?
Yeah, it's technically the chorus.
Essentially the chorus. Okay, cool.
So yeah, that's kind of what I did. Was I just wrote. I wasn't singing at the time, but I wrote a bunch of hooks and stuff. I wrote my own verses, and then from there we were obviously going back to school and trying to utilize the music room, but back then it wasn't like students could just do what they want, like I guess nowadays is.
Yeah, sure.
Where they'll kind of allow you to drive your own passion.
Yep.
And so we pushed around for time in there, and we kind of didn't get taken serious, and all the Rock Quest bands were in there anyway, so you were always competing for space or time or quiet, because they had drummers and stuff. So
yeah, we
were in there one day, and guy named Alex Gilbert came up to us and he knew what we were doing. We knew him from Morningside as well, so we'd already connected over the years, and he was making hip-hop music, and we were blown away because he did not look like he was making hip-hop music. Was
he writing the beats and stuff like that?
He was buying beats at the time.
Oh, okay.
Or I think he was starting to make his own, but he wasn't very good. None of us were. Obviously, this is the foundation years of what we went on to do.
Absolutely.
So he wasn't very good. We clicked up with him to kind of rap, more so because he knew how to record. And at the time we were recording through, like a microphone into a tape deck and stuff like that. Like this is like 2007 and we're still doing this, So he just had all the kind of resources nailed down, I guess. So we clicked up with him. He said there's a guy named Steve who's like a year or two older than us who's making beats, and I was like, oh yeah, and he goes, and he's making beats with a guy called Dan, and I went, yeah, sweet as, and I said link us up with them, and it was like sweet. And then a couple weeks later we all linked up at a lunchtime, and I asked Steve for a beat, and he gave me my first ever beat that was my own. And it was, he can't even remember it. I was talking to him about it the other week. And I was like, that beat changed my life, bro. As soon as I knew I could do something and it could be my own, and it was like, bang, it kind of became, you can do this, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And he gave me my first beat. And then from there, he kind of clicked up with me, Alex, and Ants. And Dan Barber kind of came along too, in a way. He was more into making house and drum and bass music at the time. That's Dan from Septicide. Probably just blew the lid off his past.
Dan from Septicide.
Yeah. He started off in drum and bass, but he was always a big metalhead back then.
And that makes a lot of sense for me. New Zealand band Cora.
Yeah.
Those guys were all bogans. Like massive metal
Probably making shit that sounds like Dragon or something in their backyard, in their garage.
And it's funny because we'll just sort of go off topic a little bit. I went to a Meshuggah concert. Meshuggah are probably one of the greatest metal bands ever. And I ended up standing next to Lawton, Cora, lead singer, and Richie Allen, who's also been in Cora as well. And yeah, they're just super metalheads. And I was in a band at the time, so we kind of talked, and Lawton and I became friends for a period of time, which was crazy. I was sent him my album, he would message me, and it'd be like, bro, this is mint. Yeah, it's like, well, you guys are from Whakatane, man. I'm from Gizzy.
Yeah.
You know, we were relatable. But carry on. So yeah. I do get the not hip hop, the, oh my god, what am I trying to say? Electronic music and metal combination, because that would happen years later with dubstep and
it was cool
like that.
With Dan, because to zoom forward, he ended up laying a lot of our guitar throughout all our albums and a lot of bass.
Oh wow!
So he did contribute a hell of a lot more than he'll say he did. Like he's quite a humble guy.
Yeah.
So he he really helped us out. He gave us a different sound for a while.
Okay.
So, but from there it kind of it all falls apart until 2011.
Okay, but what do you mean falls apart?
So we all kind of, because I think the year after year 10 I left 8 months in. So I left. I was still hanging out with Ants and that after school and whatnot.
Yeah.
We made a few tracks at school, and then everyone kind of went their own separate ways. Ants stayed in school till year 13. So did Steve and Dan. I went and did study elsewhere, and then 2011 was where it kind of started to boil over for us a bit, because like we got back together and, you know, a little bit older, a little bit wiser.
Yeah,
probably drunk a bit too much though, but
wow.
And then
every band kind of goes through
and
that.
And
then
from there,
most of them.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's the alcoholic years, right?
Especially when you're 17, 18,
of
you
course.
know. So yeah, it that's where it kind of got to, and that's where it kind of kicks off into the next phase of making music for us. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you obviously take a break of a year or two?
Yeah, so it's kind of like it was kind of like a blundery years kind of thing. Like everyone kind of...
You're still figuring things out, right?
Yeah, it didn't become the focus. I mean, once you get to year 11, it's NCEA, so there's a whole lot of different pressures on.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So, yeah, I think... Yeah, I'm pretty sure Steve will correct me on this when he listens, because he will listen to this and check if my OBC history's right.
Right. Well,
he's always correcting me, but I'm pretty sure
your
there's
OBC
a gap.
history, bro.
Yeah. So me and Ants went and we kind of performed at the church and stuff, and did a few things like that, and then, it kind of went kaput, and we had a few different names I don't want to mention. They were just crap, and and then that's when OBC kind of started.
So what is... So, I mean, I've asked you this question before, and I think I asked you before we even started the podcast. What does OBC stand for? Because I've heard a multitude of different names. So, on this podcast right now...
What did it start as?
Can you actually go, this is what OBC means when we first started?
Ooh.
Go on.
I'll be in the dog box after this.
You won't be. Steve, it's okay. He's allowed to do this.
Yeah, very few people will know this, but we started out on Bebo making like tracks and stuff, and the name we went under initially was Outbreak Empire. Right? OBE.
Yeah.
And then after that, we did that for a couple years, and it was kind of like we need to change our name. So we went through a bunch of names. And we always come back to Outbreak, as in pandemic kind of Outbreak.
Yeah,
it was kind of like we're going to go...
Outbreak,
I guess it was
the movie.
The early version of Viral.
Yes. Yeah.
That was kind of the goal. So we came back together and we formed Outbreak Crew, which is what it was. And then we fucking hate the name Outbreak.
Yeah.
Because back when we were Outbreak Empire, we were doing that at church and stuff.
Okay.
And it kind of sounded like a Christian rock name.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
So I was like, let's just go OBC and just ruin the definition. And so we've had.
So what are some of the names? Because I remember some of them that you've told me.
Orbital Broadcast Commanders, Ordering Butter Chicken, One Boring Christmas, Oversized Birthday Cake, Outback Collective, Older Brothers Collective. We've introduced ourselves as something different every time we've gone on stage too. Like we'll go, we're OBC, that stands for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we just kind of come up with it on the spot.
Now I find interesting because you essentially build a lore.
Yeah,
around it, and there's a mystique. It's like, well, we've had 362 names.
You wouldn't believe how many times people have come up to us afterwards, after a gig, and gone like, "What does it mean?" And we just stand there and rattle off a million names, all of us going at this one person at once, and they just like,
shouldn't have asked.
Fuck?
Yeah.
It's pretty crack up.
But it's interesting when you know the history, and I say this. So there's a wrestling reference coming.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the wrestler CM Punk?
Yes.
Okay. So CM Punk, huge in WWE, left, then went to AEW, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people actually knew what the CM stood for?
Yeah, I still don't.
Bugger. Exactly. He was part of a lawsuit a few years ago.
Yeah. With
him and another wrestler, Colt Cabana, when they were wrestling with WWE, and then prior to that, Ring of Honor. Him and Colt Cabana were part of a tag team.
Mm.
The CM. So they each gave themselves CM, which I'll explain what it means, and then another name at the end of it. And he went with Punk, and then Colt Cabana went with another name. It stands for Chick Magnet. Chick Magnet Punk. Northland Artists Conversation is proud to support 116. 116 are located on Bank Street in Whangarei, and an amazing venue that you can actually hire. If you're looking to hold an event or looking to hire a venue for a special occasion, 116 on Bank Street are an absolutely fantastic place. You can simply contact them via email off their website or through Facebook as well. 116 have had such amazing events in the past as the Whangarei Fringe Festival, and they've also held the Plunge Pop Culture Convention there as well. They also have local artists that also put performances on, as well as incoming artists that come into the region as well and want to be able to do things like have plays or perform music or any of those sorts of cool things. 116 are also home to the amazing Beagle radio station as well, which is a local initiative that is all set up with some very, very talented people that actually love what they do, and they do it all for free. So it's very, very cool. So 116 on Bank Street, proudly supported by the Northland Artists Conversation. So you finish high school early. The rest of the guys kind of stay right till the end, and you're still in that figuring out phase, right? Yeah. And then you all sort of come together and it all coalesces really, really nicely, where everyone kind of knows, well, I can do this and I can contribute that and I'm good with this part.
Yeah.
And OBC itself is formed, right?
Yeah.
In the way that most people that know OBC will be aware of it today. When you first started out, did you have like, I want to tick this milestone, I want to tick that milestone, I want to be able to do this and that? Or did you go, I want to do an album, I want to do a tour? Did you guys have goals, or were you just like, we're just going to make music and everyone's going to love it?
Short answer, no goals.
No goals.
No goals.
No goals.
The goal was such an overarching, unmetricable, I guess if that's a word. You couldn't measure it. We just wanted to blow up. We were young and dumb and just thought that would happen.
Right.
So that was kind of our goal. So it's kind of, I'd have to like tell the story to give it context.
Go.
So after I left school and after all, we didn't split, like go our separate ways. We all kept in touch. Steve kind of hit me up to make more music, and we were like, we were making it off and on. And me and Dan and Steve started making music together with Ants. And then Alex Gilbert kind of came back, and then he kind of went away, did his own thing, went off on a whole different journey.
Yeah.
We had another guy called Lou Gia who came in, but he just wasn't a fit, and so he went away. I don't know where he ended up, but he could make music, but it just was not like what we were making. He was making real Linkin Park sounding, almost emo rap.
Yeah, that
so
kind
like
of
we
new
were just
metal
like,
style
nah,
stuff,
bro,
yeah.
we write about drinking and having a good time, so,
which is reflected, I think, probably in your earlier work, right?
Yeah. So he came and went, and then we had a guy named ATAC who came along, and he was more on our vibe. He's a bit more aggressive, though, a bit more of a battle rapper, which he ended up doing a lot of in Aussie. He was the brother to Causa, who was like a local legend in Whangarei.
Oh, okay.
So Causa, for those who don't know, they call him the Māori Tupac. So I'll show you a video after this, but yeah. So ATAC came from there, and we were like, oh, he knows Causa, so that was kind of draw as well.
For people that
like,
might be interested, they can go onto YouTube, and how do we spell Causa?
Korza.
Korza, all right.
Yeah.
And is there a particular track?
I can't remember the name of it.
Okay,
but he had one track that blew up in those early days,
right? Okay.
Of our journey. So
yeah, so it'd be good, if anyone's for people, not anyone, for people that are watching and listening, have a look at YouTube and look up Causa, because you'll see a lot of what Andrew's referencing. Yeah.
So Josh came, and then he clicked up with Alex Gilbert at the time, and there was a bit of beef between us and that crew.
Yeah.
So it was all orchestrated behind the scenes by Alex kind of voice changing himself. It was really weird. We were just kids playing around with technology, and he just used it to manipulate us in ways, and it was kind of like, come on, bro.
Right,
so
okay.
I'm not afraid to say that. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Like,
so you guys didn't start sounding like T-Pain or anything?
Oh, hell no. We hated autotune. We hated mumble rap at the time. We called it mumble rap. It was fucking Lil Wayne, and Lil Wayne's held up there as like, everyone's like, he's top three, because they rank people in rap.
Yes.
So he's top three. He's the GOAT, But for me and my crew, we were like, fuck that music. Like, it just wasn't relevant. Like I say, we wrote shit to be relatable to people from our area. We wanted to blow up in our hometown, to be honest, but we wanted to take it worldwide as well.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of that going on. Some weird music coming out at the time, and we were kind of beefing a bit. We made a few tracks. We kind of went away again, and then we came together. Me, Steve, and Ants. And ATAC had gone with a guy that I grew up with, Jesse, and started a new crew.
Yeah.
Which is cool. They called themselves Final Attack, which I think is a fucking cool name.
It's a great name.
But and they made some fucking good music. Like, when they started making it and we were making it, we were like, let's collab. And those collabs turned into, let's just do everything together. And so that's how kind of OBC, the real OBC formed.
Yeah.
Was me.
So it's an amalgamation of OBC and Final Attack, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And that was what was cool too. Like, they had all their own page and everything, and we were just propping each other up.
Yeah.
As far as we knew at the time, we were the only ones doing stuff in Whangarei.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because it was on at the very beginning of social media.
Yeah.
So our pages had 2,000 likes for 11 years. Put it that way.
Right. Also, was there much of a hip hop scene in Whangarei
not at the time.
Northland? So
there was K54 rolling around, and I don't know what they. I don't know much about them, to be honest.
Okay.
But ATAC probably knows more about them than me, to be honest. There was K54. There was the Melodic crew, who one of the members. I think we ended up meeting most of them. Later on, years later.
Yeah.
Tinarano Mahanga, he's one of them. He's gifted, like a gifted hip-hop artist. Other than that, I'm not too sure at that time. This is, once again, like 2010, 2011. And I like to kind of think, and this is going to be me blowing my own trumpet, but what we released in 2011 kind of blew us up.
Yeah, okay.
It was played on the radio, it was played on TV, and we were just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, wow.
So, and then the scene kind of came alive after that, because I think people started seeking us out.
Yeah, sure.
So that was cool. We met YD, which is Ryan Donaldson. He was another rapper that he just. There's a lot of underrated kind of talent in Whangarei.
Oh wow! Okay.
He was another one doing it at the time, and I was. I approached him. He was kind of shy. He was doing stuff with another guy called Justy as well, and he was really good too. And I approached them, and they were kind of like, a bit too forward for them. I was like, let's make some music, let's do something, let's do a gig, bro.
That young want to do anything, right?
Yeah, but from that point on, we took it more serious. So we got our first gig, I think 2011-ish, and then, we were like, shit, we actually enjoy this. Let's just chase it. We've got all the time in the world. I was a part-time trolley boy at the time studying. Yeah. So, I had too much time. Yeah. And Steve had just finished studying and come back, and he was living in a flat in Whangarei and working at Pack and Save, which is where I worked as well. Ants was doing his own thing and kind of, I'm not sure. He always lived in a bit of limbo, that guy. So he was kind of just doing his own thing, and ATAC was, he was a bit younger. Oh, he's a year younger than us. I always think he's like the little brother of the crew but he's definitely not like in terms of skill. I'm not dissing you, bro. Don't hurt me. But I've always looked at him like he's younger than us, but he's actually our age. So he was living at home, and I think he was just writing raps and making beats in his spare time. Like, that guy, when he gets on work ethic, man, he can churn out like fuck. I don't know how he does it. He just beat after beat after beat. He did it for a few weeks this year, and I was like, fuck, I can't keep up with this, bro.
Right, wow.
So he put his production into overdrive, and we were making music with both Steve and ATAX Beats, and then we just had this idea, like, let's change it. Let's soften our stance a little bit, because we were doing just predominantly, we want to be hip hop, we want to be underground.
Yeah.
And that's when Summertime Vibe came around,
which is a great song. I listened to it quite a bit.
Crack up. Yeah. So it's still our most listened to track.
It's really accessible. Yeah. Some great hooks in there and really good melodies.
Yeah, no, for sure. We made that track, and at the time there was a guy doing drift footage up here.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I'm going to approach this guy and see if he'll do music videos. And I said, we'll just put our money together, what little we have, and we'll just try and pay for whatever he does. And he goes, nah, I'll work for free for you because you're a local. So he, that's how we met Kenny Ruddle.
Oh, okay.
So he went on to build Oversteer TV into the behemoth it is now, working for D1NZ and stuff. So
that's huge.
Yeah, he's an incredible. I don't know. It must just be his work ethic, because like he was an incredible asset to us, and he still kind of is. I mean, he pretty much blew us up with Summertime Vibe. Yeah. He gave us at the time a music video that was TV quality. It was 720p.
Wow. Yeah.
So just to date it again.
Exactly. That's going back a few years.
Yeah. So we did that, and man, we launched that, and I remember vividly because we launched that as a part of an album called Deadly with the Melodies. Okay. And we were all up at Jessie's mum's house because she was away, and me, ATAC, Steve. We were at Nathan's house, my mate Nathan's house, because he wanted to have the launch party at his house. He owned his house. He was the one that kind of got ahead before everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And we were sitting there and we posted it on SoundCloud, and then we closed the laptop and we left it for like 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. Got on the piss heavy. And I was like, fuck it, I can't. I got to cure this itch. I'm going to go and see how it's doing. And we had over 1,000 plays on each track in 3 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, I go, Jesse, come have a look at this. And we just looked at each other. It's nothing you could say. Like, you got to understand, this is social media in its infancy. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it was probably better back then because there was no AI algorithms and shit. And like, if you said something in 2008, they're going to pin your posts down now. Yeah. Kind of thing. It was just pure. When you launched something, it went straight to the top of the feed, and then if someone else posted it, kind of got pushed down. Yeah. And I reckon that was the best, most natural way you could do it. And so when we released this, it went like, it blew up. It was crazy. Because Ryan Cuttiker was over here. Sorry, I've forgotten about him.
I was going to say, and this is the first time we've mentioned Ryan.
Ryan Cuttiker was our singer on that hook. My bad. Yeah, he's probably the reason that track blew up. He sung the hook. He wrote the hook. He's another extremely talented guy. Yeah. I knew him from school, and I knew he sang, and I approached him to sing the hook on that. So, that track, really blew us up. And so Ryan kind of after that, he got onto when What Now came to Whangarei, they approached him to perform.
Oh wow!
It kind of lifted him as well and showed him what he was capable of. But for us, it was like we were like, shit, what do we do now? So we just didn't have a clue, and it kind of was like another album. So this is what we did next, was went into another album, which that album, it was called The Bakery Sessions. It was named after Jesse's car. He named it The Bakery.
Right.
So you can pick up the reasoning.
Yes.
So he called it The Bakery, and we wrote and reviewed every track in that car. It had the shittiest sound system. Like, obviously Steve was mastering after the fact. Yeah. But we would sit in that car for hours and write. Like, I never smoked, so it was really weird. You never
partook of The Bakery?
No. Okay. No. So, it was mainly Jesse and Steve and ATAC.
Right. Okay.
At that time, and we kind of hit this really weird. I guess it's just that sophomore trouble. You know, your sophomore album's always a bit of a slap. Yeah. Like, not to say we didn't have any good tracks, but it just didn't pack the essence that the first album, I guess, did initially. Yeah. And, you know, we were all rapping for real for the first time on that first album, and to try and follow that up immediately. So we released Deadly with the Melodies in 2011, and by 2013 we had the Bakery Sessions done.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah. And that we were gigging hard. I don't know if we were at that time, actually, but gigging kind of really ramped up when we realized we liked performing. But we did a few gigs. It was all local. We'd never been paid for gigs. It was like it was all like charity events and stuff we were doing. You know, hip hop didn't have its place in Whangarei. That came along a lot later. So you hit the it's essentially the dreaded sophomore album, because you know, a lot of bands do struggle. They have you know, such a massive amount of time to write that first album and refine it and hone it down. Real intrinsic pressure.
Yeah, and then you do that second album and you're like, oh, I've got to make it better.
Yeah.
And then you really start applying pressure on yourself. And the second albums of it can often be the one where it can make or break a band as well. Yeah. Now, it's awesome to hear all the OBC story, and I think the reason I wanted to focus on that is because OBC is finally active again.
Yeah. So loosely, just so you know.
But it's cool because you guys you're back on social media again.
We've got plans and goals this time.
Yeah. Are you able to share any of that? Do you want
for this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we're still, because time's even more scarce now that we're older. Steve's got a kid. I've got kids. Yeah. You know, ATAC is kind of trapped out in where he lives, so he struggles to get in sometimes. So that's no issue. But we've got some good plans. We've got some good tracks we've been building with Ryan Karaka.
Okay. Yeah.
As well, we're looking to release. I'm singing more, obviously. I in Zero BC, which is our latest album, I chose to. We just chose to, because it was just me and Steve, really. ATAC kind of came back from Aussie and joined in halfway through. Right, okay. So that's why half the tracks don't feature him. But so some of them he actually recorded in Aussie and sent back to us, which is called Lawns is one. There was another one on there, I think. Lawns he definitely recorded in Aussie because we put pressure on him because we wanted to get that track done. Yeah. And so with that album, we didn't take ourselves as seriously, and to me, it's our best work. It kind of flopped because there was a big pandemic, and I didn't, at the time, social media had changed so much that I just didn't know what to fucking do anymore.
When did that album come out?
2021 in March.
Oh, wow, that's right. That's right at the cusp of...
Yeah, so that was going into another lockdown as well. Yeah. But not to say it isn't successful. Like, 2 of those tracks entered our top 5 played. Okay. So I'm pretty stoked with that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so is Steve, because we kind of want to push out all our old stuff now, you know what I mean? But you're never going to shed your old tracks. And we've actually had some pretty intense talks recently about that kind of mentality. But it's good to see that album kind of lift. But this time we're going to do it a lot different. We're probably not going to do another album again. So,
okay. What are we going to do? What, EPs or?
Nah,
or just like drop a
ideas.
single or?
Yeah, we've been thinking about doing like singles with B-sides.
Oh yeah.
So when we
like a side A and a side B essentially.
Yeah. That's been a concept we've kind of been developing. So but every track we make, we want to make it good.
Yeah.
And we want to do music videos for it. So we have a lot of tracks in a Dropbox that just aren't going to see the light of day. And
headphones.
My bad.
Having a bit of a
technical difficulties. Try to itch my ear.
Yeah.
And but like, so for instance, there's a track called Vibing we're working on right now. I'm not too secretive about what we're working on, to be honest, because like, you know, if you know the journey, then you probably appreciate it more anyway.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Vibing's been in the works since I started another side project called Resolute with Ryan and a guy named Tegan, and we just kind of did anything and everything just to see what was going on. We tried to kind of bring everyone from a certain era kind of back up, you know, just to kind of get something started, and we came up with a few hooks with Ryan. Ryan and Tegan have got a couple tracks they're working with Steve on.
Oh yeah, nice.
So that's pretty cool. But there's one particular track, Vibing, I really like it. It's just kind of about not taking yourself so seriously in that kind of hip-hop game. Well, my verse on it is you know, I used to have a plan to move forward, now wing it kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the opening line. So like, you know, when we made Zero BC, we realized we've got to stop taking our music so seriously and just make what we want.
Yeah.
Because it just vibes better. It comes out more polished. It comes out more natural.
Yep.
So like, if anyone making hip hop wants advice, just do whatever comes out of your pen. You know, just write it and record it. And if it's shit, put it to the side and go again. Put it to the side and go again. Because I think a lot of hip hop artists trip themselves up, especially in between projects. And this is rich coming from me because our projects have been so long between drinks.
Yeah.
So like, you've just got to stop taking the music so serious. I mean, when you write, it comes out more natural if you're just being honest.
Yep.
I think a lot of people put up a facade, and for some people it works, but for a lot of people, I can actually see through it. Do you know what I mean? Like, for us, So like, one of the biggest inspirations for us is Homebrew.
Oh yeah,
and so their influence,
band.
They come through our music.
Yeah,
a lot of people have said that we're like the Homebrew of Whangarei, just because we talk about just grassroots shit.
Yeah,
walking down the street with bare feet, kind of thing. You know, just we are who we are.
Yeah, waking up from a hangover and you're in a batch.
Yeah. Nah, that batch, man. They rebuilt it, but
oh really?
It has a really.
Got some sentimental value.
It'll be my last memory on my deathbed. I think that batch. I like that batch. I got a thing for old Kiwi batches, bro.
So you alluded to having some conversations about looking at the other material. Just to pick a random song, I'll pick your most popular song, Summertime Vibe. Is that something that you would go back and redo again and essentially update it for?
Yeah. There has been some talk about that.
Yeah.
Just purely because going into gigging, that song's going to be recognised, along with the likes of Time and Let's Get Hungover. So we've been spitballing ideas on how to kind of bring them into the current era.
Yeah.
Like doing even, not drastically alternate, but sampling the originals and making new beats.
Okay.
So even recycling our own music, essentially.
Would you
clean
still,
green Kiwis.
Would you still maintain the same lyrics, or would they get updated as well?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. We maintained the bones of the song,
right?
But change something slightly so that it kind of gets a bit more. Because, like, for instance, we recorded that on an acoustic guitar, no electronics, and if you listen closely, you can actually hear the neck creaking when he plays.
The neck of the guitar.
Yeah, it's like,
wow.
So we even toyed around with like ideas of like, you know how he moves his fingers along the fretboard,
Yeah.
just sample that and make an instrument out of it, like kind
Yeah.
of thing. So like strip it back and redo it in a way, but try and maintain some of that originality so that it's recognizable, but it's also like, oh fuck, this is a little bit different. So yeah, there have been some conversations around that.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, you know, to be able to take a song that essentially helped, you know, get the band that recognition, and then to, you know, reinterpret it in a modern way.
Yeah.
I guess would be both exciting and daunting.
Yeah.
Because you're going, man, this is the one that broke us.
Yeah.
And if we do this new update, are people going to look at it and go, oh yeah, or are they going to go, no, go back to the old one, but just do modern production?
But you see, for us, it'll only be a gigging thing.
Oh, right.
Those songs will never change the way they've been released.
Right,
Like,
okay.
we're not going to change that at all. We
You're
might
not gonna
remaster them at some point.
Not going to do Summertime Vibe 2023, for example.
Nah, it wouldn't be right. Like that song holds a special, like, not in Steve's, but in everyone else's heart. Same with Let's Get Hungover. Same with like Time is another one.
Yeah.
That one became bigger than Summertime Vibe. I remember back, must have been about 2015, 2016. We were doing a gig at McMorrissey's. Ricky Prime was DJing and he was onto it. He could hear the crowd singing it back to us, so he just cut the track and we were just doing it and the crowd just singing it. I was like, what the fuck?
Wow.
So that was probably the most memorable gig of my life. So like, you can't do that to those kind of tracks.
No, you can't.
You have to leave them kind of as they are. As I say, I would remaster them and re-release them.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of us would agree with completely
changing
remixing
them,
it.
right,
But when we perform, you know, you kind of open to doing anything when you perform. You don't really lock yourself into a certain way of being, I guess. So no, I don't as far as we know, we don't have any plans to remix those tracks and release them.
Will you guys start gigging again with new material?
Yeah, that's the plan. The plan is centered around gigs.
Okay.
So like, that's what we love. That was the discussion we had, was that is what we love. That is what we want to do, but everything else has to be on as well.
Yeah.
So we've kind of tried to get back into that social media space. There's been a few hiccups over the past months that has kind of dampened that a little bit. I've approached management just for tips on what a manager would be looking for in hip hop, and you know, not that we ever want to be managed by someone else, but just to clean our act up on those sorts of things. Because, you know, you go and try and pitch yourself to a venue or pitch yourself to this, you need to have your ducks in a row.
You do,
So
absolutely.
It's not, back in the day we used to have this rough EPK, and I would just go through Event Finder and apply and just find the event managers' names and just send them emails. And so we'll hit them up on Facebook. So like, people will be like, how'd you get that gig? How'd you get that gig? I wouldn't tell them. So there you go. Secret
is out. But I mean, that's, you know, the art of self-promotion, right? That's very much a Kiwi thing, you know, you fake it till you make it. Do what you can. For me, to hear about what's coming up is incredibly exciting. Because it'll be nice to see another Whangarei band sort of getting back into the fold, because as you know, as gigs start happening again, you know, it's good. You're able to get that again. You know, getting down to Auckland and opening up for bigger acts.
That's another big one. So you just got to get on that radar first. You
do, and I think it's super cool, and I always applaud any artist that's really looking at moving forward. You know, you have motion, and you kind of keep moving forward. You have to keep moving forward no matter what, or else you kind of stagnate.
And I guess what I like about OBC is we kind of reinvent ourselves every time we go into these kind of lulls and come back. Like, the difference between the T-Ship series of albums and Zero BC is just huge. It's a completely different thing. So like, I'm excited to see what we actually do. We've got some tracks that sound old. We've got some tracks that sound like something we've never done before. So I can't wait to hear it. I think it's going to be amazing. Neither can I.
You're going to be recording it. Hopefully you hear it before me. Look, Andrew, thank you very much for coming in and sitting down. I know you look after a big chunk of the filming and the editing and stuff like that with yourself and Rocky.
We've made it work.
So I really appreciate you actually being in front of the camera, because you'll be the second person now, because we have Marino last year. So,
No, all good.
you've now joined the club. So, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
No worries, man.
Hello, everyone. Well, wasn't that a podcast? If you got through it, let's play a game of how many times did Andrew drop an F-bomb? Because there were certainly a lots. There was more than 2. Producer Andrew in the background is holding up his fingers like this, going, there was only 2. No, there was 2 in one sentence, and that happened a lot. But we'll play that game. If you do work it out, please let us know. That'll be highly amusing. Look, one of those podcasts that was super cool, totally on the fly. Andrew had no clue what we were going to really talk about or what was going to happen. And you know what? He enjoyed it. We did the rapid fire segment as well that we did, except I didn't do 10 questions that I would ask normal guests. I just picked 10 questions off the top of my head. They're all, I guess, kind of music-centric. Well, the answers are very music-centric, but that's to be expected. Andrew is an incredibly talented hip-hop artist. He writes lyrics and hooks. Can't write beats, so he's not a wholeheartedly talented artist. He's kind of getting there. But bless him, he really wishes that he could write beats, and he answers that in the rapid fire segment. He even says, by his own admission, I wish I could write beats. But that's okay. I'm going to throw it on my camera now. When we sort of started this whole podcast, Andrew and I are from 2 very different worlds. Andrew's from hip-hop. I have a metal background. And, we collaborated with at the Plunge comic book convention for 2021. And we got on super well. So it was super cool to actually be able to get Andrew in the chair, finally, and just talk with him about what's coming up. And look, OBC, super cool band. They're on Spotify and YouTube. Summertime Vibe is a killer song, and it is definitely one of those sorts of very laid-back, cool songs. I have it on a Spotify playlist that I like because it's just such a nice song. It's super easy. And then Time being another one as well. It's really cool hip-hop with a very Northland flavour to it. So if it's something you might be interested in, have a look. It's now, is it O.B.C. or is it O? It is at OBCNZ. That's on YouTube. That's how you find them. Piece of cake. Well worth checking it out. So, Andrew, thanks very much for being on. It feels weird saying that, even though Andrew's just off camera sitting behind the computers. He's given himself big ups because he thought his performance was massive. Who's down with OBC? Yeah, you know me. So let's let's talk about where you guys can find the podcast, where you can watch and listen to it, and where you can find us on social media. So for the visuals, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All Northland Artists Conversation. It's somewhere around there. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. All Northland Artists Conversation. All one word. And if you are an artist, or if you know someone who is an artist who would love to be on here, or if you would like to pressure them to be on here, we accept that as well. Please make sure that you reach out to us. And you can contact us by emailing hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. Nice and simple. And if you really, really appreciate what we do and you love it and you've been with us for the start, thank you very much. We appreciate you. If you're a new listener, great, amazing, super cool. Welcome. We love new listeners as well and viewers. But if you want to support us just a little bit more, we also have a Patreon page as well where you can log in and join, and we have a couple of different tiers. So the first tier we have is a cup of coffee, and that's $5 a month. And that's just a nice little way of saying, hey, thanks very much. We think what you do is cool. The second tier we have is called Coffee Addict, and that is $20 a month. With that, you get a few extras that you don't get with the $5 tier. What you get is you get the option to ask one of our upcoming artists a question. Now, how do you know about that? That's the second bonus that you get is we will tell you what the upcoming artists are. Now, we're booked until mid-April at this point, which is super cool. So, we've got some great people coming on. And where you can find all of this is there's two ways. You can go to Google and then type in Patreon. That's Patreon. Top right-hand corner, log in, create an account, and then search Northland Artists Conversation, one word. You'll find us. We're there. That's way one, number one. The even quicker way is to go www.patreon.com/Northland Artists Conversation. There we are. Nice and easy. So we couldn't make it simpler if we tried. Beautiful stuff. I'm going to throw back to my wide now. I'm going to get comfy. It's really cool that we've had Andrew on. He's been, integral in getting the podcast off the ground with a small idea that I went to him and said, oi, we should do some shit. And him going, oh, yeah, which is kind of how it went. And then we sort of built this thing up from scratch. So we had Marino on last year. She came on board and she does all of the communications and she does a chef's kiss job at what she does. She is absolutely amazing. She is super cool. And if you're going to come on the podcast, I guarantee you've been emailing her backwards and forwards. So to have Andrew on this time round has been super cool. All right, so it's nice to get another person from the NAC crew on, if you like. There's one person that won't, and that is our editor, Rocky. He's just said that's a hard no for him. Rocky, I respect that. I think that's very cool, and you've said a hard no. I'll never change your mind, and that's okay. But you know what? For everyone that's been on the podcast so far, and everyone that's going to be on the podcast, thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate you giving over of your time, and just being super cool and coming in and sitting down. Man, it's a lot of fun. I love what we do. And I love that everyone gets to see it and experience it and hear it and learn new things. One of our biggest supporters has always said, I will do something creative and I'll have the podcast on in the background and I'll be like, didn't know that. So there we go. And that's the experience we have. We just love to learn. So on that high note, my name is Mark Kelly. Behind the computer is producer Andrew. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Northland Artists Conversation, and we will see you guys real soon.